In this video, I'm going to be covering replacing the glow plug relay unit on a BMW M47 engine that's in a BMW 1 Series, the E87. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to be covering replacing that troublesome glow plug relay unit that basically I found out that I had issues with when I ran some diagnostics. This all started off when I had a MOT failure for emissions um, in the car, and I actually ran the diagnostics after that, and I saw that my glow plug unit had, well, all my glow plugs were gone, and there were a number of other faults that I'm now chasing down on the vehicle. Um, First thing I did was actually thinking, oh, I'll just replace all the glow plugs. The car actually had over 100,000, or has got over 100,000 miles on it, and I thought, well, I better just replace the glow plugs. They could all have gone. But when I did that, I found out that actually none of the glow plug faults went, which then led me to the point of actually realizing that I had to go and order myself a new glow plug relay. But first of all, I had to work out where exactly it was, which was not actually the easiest thing to do. And actually, it wasn't in a very easy place at all to find. Now, the reason I wanted to sort this out, a lot of people say you don't need to worry about your glow plugs in the UK. It doesn't really get cold enough. So yeah, just if it goes, don't worry about it. Some people say if it does go, just take it off, see if you can repair it. If you can't repair it, then just don't worry about it at all. Just leave it off. Just that's not the way I think about these things. I thought, well, if it's broken, I really should repair it because you never know, it could have an effect on the car. And the reality is, we do actually have some quite cold winters. The car's left outside, and as I said, the emissions issue, I wasn't sure whether that was related to it because it's cold starting all the time. It's not getting that extra heat in through the glow plugs. That could be meaning that the diesel's not burning so cleanly. That links in with an EGR issue I've had as well with the vehicle. Might also mean that I should really get this changed to make sure that the engine's sound and ticking over. Plus, there's the added issue or desire of mine, which is to actually just clear all the faults on that car, which is now getting on for, well, it's 2005, September 2005. So it's 14 years old, just over 14 years old, and it's got 100, over 100, it's got 115,000 miles on it. So if I can keep that car ticking over, I'm going to be really quite happy. Because other than that, it's pretty sound. So yeah, as I said, I had a number of issues trying to work this out, which I'll run through with you on this video. If you like this video, if you want to see more like it, as I sort of go fault finding on the BMWs that I work on, please do click subscribe, tick the bell, and you'll know whenever I'm doing a new job. I'm always doing something on these cars, and you never know, these are the kind of jobs that are cropping up as these cars go into this sort of period of their lifespan. So yeah, please do subscribe, and also I would really appreciate a like. And if you have any comments, any questions, queries, want to ask me some questions about this job or any others, just leave them in the comment section. I'll do my best to get back to you. Right.
It's always really important to do your homework, and this is my diagnostics page for my car when it's run the test, and as you can see I've got the 4 glow plugs out there, which is why I decided I was going to actually take some action here. The bottom 2 problems, I know what they are, and they're minor to be honest, but these 4 glow plugs are what I wanted to do. So with that in mind, I went over and had a look at the repair instructions for this. I've just put in the basic vehicle details. You want to go into vehicle management, repair maintenance, and then the product structure you want to go to the engine electrical system 1221 preheating relay repair. Now it's not much use at all in this situation. I think there's some sort of issue here because it is not actually relevant, or it didn't appear to be relevant to my vehicle anyway. It's just playing up a little bit here. Yeah, so as you can see there, it talks about switching off the engine, fine. Remove underbody protection, yeah, fine, you've got to do that. But then it talks about installation location on air intake manifold bottom. Now, mine was by no means anywhere near the air intake manifold at all. In fact, it's on the bottom of the oil cooler itself. Over to realoem.com. Going into the engine electrical system. Okay, glow plug unit they call it. And again, not much use whatsoever. I mean, that doesn't even look like what I'm looking at here. I mean, it is the preheating control unit. It gives me a part number. Very useful, but not actually what I'm interested in at all. So this was a little bit, took me a bit of tracking down to actually work out where this was. Did a little bit of casting around on forums on the internet, and I think I sort of worked out that basically I've got to get my head under the car, and I've got to have a good look around with the spotlight and see if I can find it.
First thing you've got to do is jack the car up safely. What does that involve? Well, basically, put the handbrake on, chock the rear wheels as well if you can. Make sure you're on a level surface. I'm really lucky. I've got a nice garage that I can get the radio going, and can put the front door down, keep the heat in. So I'm really lucky there. But make sure you've got somewhere level to do it. This isn't too tricky a job if you know what you're doing. So it's something you could potentially do on your driveway, not to be too worried about. It's not going to mean that you've got the car stranded there. Anyway, get that car jacked up, and then take that tray off underneath. There's loads of bolts there that you've got to undo, so make sure you get them all undone before you try and remove it. It should just drop out pretty easy. And then you've got to kind of put yourself over on the, as you look at it, the right hand side of the car, but kind of towards its left wheel. And the image you can see here now is basically up through the engine mount. There's basically two apertures that you can look up into the engine from there. There's a small one that's just behind the steering rack, and then there's one that's a bit further back behind that through the just behind this engine mount that you can see here, where you can see that ground braiding there in the picture, and then you can see the fuel line that comes down. Now, one of the things you've got to do to get this good view is actually take off, there's like basically a protector there in that place, just to protect those fuel lines as they come down from any like rocks or stones that get chipped up. So just remove that. It's two, I think they're all 11mm bolts here, I think. Anyway, the size of that bolt on that protector is the size of the bolts that are securing this relay anyway. So just take that off. It's going to give you, you'll need to do that to give you the extra space to work on the relay. Now, if you look in the picture, you can see here the relay is basically in the centre shot, and what it is housed on a plate which is mounted to the bottom of the oil cooler. And there's two bolts, two nuts that basically secure it onto that plate, which you're going to need to loosen. Now, what I thought was, well, what I'll do is I'll see if I can take the connectors off first, and then I'll see if I can get the bolts undone. But the way to do it is actually to undo the bolts, and then you can almost pull the module up through the top of the engine slightly, and then you can really get your fingers around the connectors to pull them off, because they're pretty much on there. They're very good at obviously sealing for the elements. So they're pretty. There's quite a bit of suction on those when you're trying to pull them off. The big one comes off with a couple of. There's one. There's also one clip on either side. There's two clips, one on either side. So you'll need to get your fingers around that. You can't do that when it's in its location at the moment. When it's in its installed location, you've got to take it off to do that. And the other one, I got a small flathead screwdriver in and just able to just pry open the two sort of clasps, that kind of small plastic clasps that you get on many BMW connectors. I was able to pry those open, and that popped off. That one, I think, delivers the power into the unit, and then the bigger one actually takes it out to all of the other, all the glow plugs as required. So once I got that, as I said, once I got the two nuts undone, what I did was I pulled it through to the top of the engine, and then basically pull those two connectors off. Now, to get those nuts undone, it was a bit of a job. Basically, I had to put my one arm through the big aperture, which is where this picture is taken, whilst I used my sort of shone my torch through the other aperture and had a look at it. With sort of feel, I undid the nuts. They weren't torqued up at all. Very easy. I just used my simple kind of handheld, my motorbike's socket set, which is really small. which I use for undoing all these small nuts all over the car. And once I got it undone, I sort of finger loose, I basically undid it with my fingers to make sure I didn't drop it. Although if you did drop it, you'd probably be all right. It'd probably just fall out of the car, or maybe on top of that engine mount you can see there. So not too difficult to get undone. Once I'd kind of figured out where I was going to put my arms and my fingers and all that, and what was going to work. So hopefully that'll give you a bit more of an insight. This engine's pretty mucky because it's basically had an oil leak in the past, so that's why it looks the state it does. So if you are down here, you could potentially look at cleaning it up if you can see any like big oil spills, which is what I've got, because basically the oil's come down those glow plug leads, because that's where the oil leak was, around the intake as well. Anyway, that's the story with actually getting the unit. I thought I would have a go at actually trying to repair it. There's a number of other YouTube videos out there about repairing these units, and it just looks like a simple job with just a bit of wire and some solder, and yeah, everything should be fine. So I thought what I'd do is I'd cut the top of my unit off. So I used my multi-tool and cut that off. Pretty straightforward. And inside, I don't know if you can see, it's like this kind of jelly, silicone-y kind of covering. It's basically completely transparent, but it's there on the surface, and it covers everything. Obviously, it kind of isolates it from vibrations, as well as keeping it kind of waterproof as well. But it hadn't actually isolated it. I mean, I've obviously been hacking away at this, because I could quite clearly see, I think this is where the power comes in, that the solder joints on that, they're all just these fine wires, and those had all completely come away. And there was one over here that had also come away. And I thought that, to be honest, for the faff this is to get out, I know some other BMWs, this isn't so difficult to get out, but for the faff it was to get out, I'm going to look into buying a new one. So I went online, found out the version of this that I needed. It was a Beru. I got the box here, the new one I got. It was a GSE 101. I needed the 101 because mine's an older BMW. And actually, after going around looking where I could get the best price from, believe it or not, it was Amazon. And being a Saturday when I did this, I actually was able to, and realising that I couldn't actually repair it, it was beyond repair really, I was able to get it delivered the next day for free, and it was the cheapest I could find. So I don't know what more to say about that. Well done, Amazon, for obviously they're getting big into car parts, and it's clearly a proper box, and it was exactly the same, the new model as the old one, same markings on the top. And this is branded BMW, but other than that, it's all the same. So I was pretty confident it's a legitimate part. So looking at it, as I said earlier in the video, you've got this big unit here, that's where all the power goes out to I think to the glow plugs themselves, and then this is where it goes in, and these connectors here are the tricky ones to get off with the screwdriver that I managed to get in underneath it. And then you've got these two lugs basically with the clips that kind of slide in and go over it. So you've got it, and there's one on either side, so you've got to go over it. And then these are the two, this is where the two nuts secure it here. Okay, so it's kind of mounted kind of upside down that way on the car, and you sort of bring your arm in and around and under to get to this one. This is quite tight, and this one was quite straightforward to get to on that side. And then once you got it undone with the socket set, you need a socket set, can't use a spanner on this. You can just undo it with your fingers. So that was that. And as I said, I got the new one pretty quick the next day, about 11 o'clock in the morning. So the new one, putting it on was a lot easier than taking the old one off. Basically, decided I was going to mount it first, and then look at doing up the bolts, which was fairly straightforward. Actually, once I could have just push it on there, and like the weight of it kind of kept it on the actual the bolts. The bolts themselves, and then I was able to just sort of get the nut and tighten it up with my fingers, and then tighten it finally up with the small socket set that I've got. So that was all quite straightforward. I didn't need any extension bars or anything like that. And then it was just a case of replacing the splash, plugging it in, which was easy, and then just replacing that guard as well. Don't forget to put that back on, because that's what's protecting your fuel lines, or I think your brake lines as well, to the rear of the vehicle, and then putting the tray on underneath. And then what I did was obviously plugged in ISTA again, and ran the diagnostics, and it cleared all of the glow plug faults. So yeah, the only issue I had was I got a pretty old battery, and I've got the original 14-year-old AGM battery in there. So actually the battery had gone flat in a couple of weeks that I hadn't used the car, and I've been going in and out on it. The interior light had been going on and off, so I had to give it a quick charge, and then it started up fine, cleared the faults. So yeah, that's the relay fixed. If you like this video, if you'd like to see other videos like it, like to see what I'm doing with these old cars when they start breaking down, which hopefully, touch wood, they won't do that often, or you want to ask me any questions or whatever, please do ask them in the comment section below. I'll get back to you. If you want to see more videos like this, please do subscribe to my channel, click the bell, and you'll get a notification every single time I put a video up, which is roughly running out about one every 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how often these kind of jobs are coming up and what kind of questions you're asking me as well. So if you would like to do that, also look at some of my other videos that I've done on central heating, remote control central heating, and those kind of handy DIY jobs that you can kind of get away with doing yourself. If you don't know how to do it, please look at those and see if anything takes your fancy, if it corresponds to some sort of job that you're looking to do around your home. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Please do leave some comments. Please do leave the thumbs up and subscribe if you feel like it. And I hope this was of some use to you, and you were able to fix your BMW M47 engine, whatever car it's mounted on.